Welcome to Section 6.1, Part 1. This is the 43rd session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. Let's begin at the foundation with what cryptography is actually trying to accomplish. In this session, we'll lay the groundwork for everything cryptographic. We'll answer several questions. What are the 4 goals cryptography serves? What does each of those goals really deliver? What vocabulary do you need to talk about codes and ciphers? What is a key, and why is its size everything? And should the algorithm itself be a secret? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because you will make cryptographic choices in almost every design you touch. Picture a messaging startup, a payment gateway, and a hospital records system. Each one leans on encryption to survive a hostile network. When you know what a crypto system can and cannot promise, you pick the right tool. When you do not, you ship a false sense of safety. So what are the 4 goals cryptography serves? There are exactly 4, and no single system has to deliver all of them. The first is confidentiality, keeping data secret. The second is integrity, keeping data unaltered. The third is authentication, proving who someone is. The fourth is non-repudiation, making an action undeniable. Think of these 4 as a menu. You choose the ones your situation actually requires. What does confidentiality really protect? It protects secrecy across 3 different states of data. Data at rest sits still, on a drive, a backup tape, or a cloud bucket. Data in transit moves across a wire or a wireless link between 2 systems. Data in use lives in active memory while a process works on it. Each state faces its own threat, from device theft to eavesdropping to a rogue process. Picture a diamond. It needs a vault at night, an armoured van on the road, and a watched counter while it is on display. What does integrity really protect? It protects the accuracy of your data. Integrity gives the recipient confidence that a message arrived exactly as it was sent. It guards against the third party inserting false content, against a chunk being deleted, and against random corruption in transmission. You enforce it with a digital signature, an encrypted fingerprint of the message. The receiver checks that fingerprint and knows nothing was touched. Think of a wax seal on a letter. A broken seal tells you instantly that someone got there first. What does authentication really do? It verifies that someone is who they claim to be. A common way to prove this is a challenge and response. Imagine 2 colleagues who share a secret rule for scrambling words. One asks the other to encrypt a random phrase using that shared secret. Only the true partner can return the correctly scrambled version. Once it checks out, identity is confirmed. It is like a password that changes with every question, so overhearing one answer teaches an eavesdropper nothing. What does non-repudiation guarantee? It guarantees that a sender cannot later deny sending a message. It assures the recipient the message truly came from that person, not an imposter. Here is the catch worth memorizing. A shared secret key alone cannot provide this. If 2 people hold the same key, either one could have produced the message, so neither can be pinned down. Non-repudiation comes only from public key systems, where each person holds a private key that is theirs alone. Think of a handwritten signature that only one hand can forge. What vocabulary do you need to talk about ciphers? Just a few core terms. A plaintext message is the readable original. You run it through an algorithm to produce ciphertext, the scrambled version you send. The recipient reverses the process to recover the plaintext. The art of building these systems is cryptography. The art of breaking them is cryptanalysis. Put them together and the whole field is called cryptology. Keep this small dictionary handy, because every later topic reuses it. What is a key, and why does its size matter so much? A key is really just a number, usually a very large binary one. The key space is the full range of values that key could hold, and it is set by the bit size. Add 1 bit and you double the number of possibilities. So a longer key means an attacker guessing values by brute force faces exponentially more work. Picture a bike lock. 3 dials give 1,000 combinations, but 4 dials give 10,000. Every extra digit multiplies the effort to break in, and all of your protection rests on keeping that key secret. Should the algorithm itself be kept secret? Most cryptographers say no. The guiding idea here is that a system should stay secure even if everyone knows exactly how it works, as long as the key stays private. The blunt version is simply, the enemy knows the system. Publishing an algorithm invites the whole community to attack it, and weak ones get exposed and abandoned fast. The opposite habit, hiding the design, is called security through obscurity, and it tends to fail the moment someone peeks. Trust the lock, not the fact that nobody has seen the blueprint. So let's bring it together. Cryptography serves 4 goals: confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation, and you pick the ones you need. Confidentiality guards data at rest, in transit, and in use. Integrity proves nothing changed. Authentication proves who you are. And non-repudiation, which needs public keys, makes actions undeniable. Learn the core terms, remember that longer keys mean exponentially harder attacks, and trust open algorithms over secret ones. These foundations carry the rest of the chapter. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to Section 6.1, Part 2. This is the 44th session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. Now we turn to the mathematics that makes those goals actually work. In this session, we'll unpack the math behind the ciphers. We'll answer several questions. Why does cryptography live in a world of just ones and zeros? What do the core logical operations do? Why is one operation the workhorse of encryption? What is the modulo function, and why does it matter? What makes a function easy one way but hard to reverse? And what clever tricks add strength, randomness, and shared control? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because the algorithms you approve are built from these exact pieces. Picture a security architect reviewing a new encryption library. If a vendor claims a design is unbreakable, you need to know what actually makes it strong. Understanding the building blocks lets you separate real security from marketing. It also helps you reason about why an old algorithm finally fell. Why does cryptography live in a world of ones and zeros? Because computers only truly understand 2 states. An electrical circuit is either on or off. Current, present, or absent. We label these true and false, or 1 and 0. All of the math that scrambles your data is built on manipulating these 2 values. This is called Boolean mathematics. Think of a room full of light switches. Every switch is either up or down, and every message is just a long pattern of those switch positions. What do the core logical operations do? 3 simple rules combine those bits. The AND operation returns true only when both inputs are true. The OR operation returns true when at least one input is true. The NOT operation just flips a single value, turning true into false. These run on whole strings of bits at once, comparing them position by position. Picture 3 different rules for a bouncer. AND needs 2 matching IDs, OR needs just 1, and NOT simply reverses whoever was let in. Why is one operation the workhorse of encryption? Because the exclusive OR operation has a magical property. Exclusive OR returns true when exactly one input is true, but false when both match. The magic is that it is perfectly reversible. Apply the same key twice with exclusive OR, and you land right back on the original data. That is why it sits at the heart of so many ciphers. Think of a light controlled by 2 switches at opposite ends of a hall. Flip either one to change the state, flip it again to change it right back. What is the modulo function, and why does it matter? Modulo is simply the remainder after division. Divide 8 by 6 and you get 1 with 2 left over. So 8 modulo 6 is 2. Cryptography leans on this constantly, especially to wrap values around a fixed range. It is the reason a cipher can shift past the end of the alphabet and loop cleanly back to the start. Picture a clock face. Add 5 hours to 11 and you do not get 16, you wrap around to 4. What makes a function easy one way but hard to reverse? This is the idea of a one-way function. It is easy to compute in the forward direction but practically impossible to run backward. Multiply three large prime numbers together and you get an answer in an instant. But hand someone only that answer and ask which primes produced it, and they are stuck for ages. Public key cryptography rests entirely on functions we believe behave this way. Think of scrambling an egg. Trivial to do, effectively impossible to undo. How do we inject freshness so patterns never repeat? We add a number used once, called a nonce. A nonce is a value that appears only a single time in a given process, guaranteeing a fresh result on every run. The most common example is an initialization vector, a random string combined with the message before encryption. Because that random value changes each time, encrypting the same message twice with the same key still yields different ciphertext. Think of salting a dish differently at every serving, so no two plates are ever identical. How can you prove you know a secret without revealing it? Through a zero-knowledge proof. It lets you convince someone that you hold a fact, like a password, without ever exposing the fact itself. Imagine a ring-shaped cave with a locked door deep inside, reachable by two paths. You walk in by one path and come out the other. Doing that proves you open the door, and opening it proves you know the password, yet the watcher never hears a single character of it. That is the whole trick. Confidence without disclosure. How do you stop any single person from holding all the power? You split the knowledge. Split knowledge divides the information or privilege needed for a sensitive action across several people, so no one alone can abuse it. A common use is key escrow, where a copy of a key is held for safekeeping by a trusted party called a recovery agent. To prevent one agent from acting alone, you use what is called an M of N control. That means a minimum number of agents, M, out of a larger group, N, must cooperate before the key can be recovered. Think of a nuclear launch that needs two officers turning their keys at the same moment. How do you measure how strong a crypto system really is? You measure its work function. The work function is the cost and time an attacker would need to break the system by brute force, trying every possibility. The stronger the system, the higher that number climbs. The smart move is to match the work function to the value of what you are protecting. If data loses all value in a week, you only need protection that outlasts the week. Guarding a lunch menu with the effort you would spend on state secrets is simply wasted money. So let's bring it together. Cryptography runs on Boolean math, just ones and zeros, and, or, and not combine bits, while exclusive or does the reversible heavy lifting. Modulo wraps values around a range, and one-way functions are easy forward but not backward. Nonces add freshness. Zero-knowledge proofs prove without revealing. Split knowledge shares control through M of N, and the work function tells you how much strength you actually need. These pieces assemble into every cipher ahead. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to Section 6.1, Part 3. This is the 45th session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. With the goals and the math behind us, let's meet the classic ciphers themselves. In this session, we'll walk through the building blocks of every cipher. We'll answer several questions. How is a code different from a cipher? What are the two basic ways to scramble a message? What makes a one-time pad theoretically unbreakable? What is a running key cipher? Does a cipher work on whole chunks or one piece at a time? And what two properties make a modern cipher strong? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because these old ideas are the DNA of the algorithms you use today. Picture troubleshooting a legacy application still leaning on a weak, homegrown cipher. Recognizing its ancestry tells you instantly why it fails and what to replace it with. These classic techniques also show up constantly in exam questions. Knowing them cold is the fastest way through that part of the test. How is a code different from a cipher? People use the words interchangeably, but they are not the same. A code swaps whole words or phrases for other symbols, and it is not always meant to hide meaning. Think of the shorthand radio phrases that emergency crews use, where a single number stands for a full sentence. A cipher is always meant to conceal, and it works on the smallest units, individual characters, bits, or fixed blocks. An easy anchor is this: codes handle words and phrases, while ciphers handle characters and bits. What are the two basic ways to scramble a message? There are two fundamental moves. The first is transposition, which rearranges the pieces you already have without changing them. Take a word and reverse its letters, and apple becomes elper. The second is substitution, which swaps each piece for a different one. The classic example shifts every letter a fixed number of places down the alphabet. So with a shift of 3, A becomes D. Picture a deck of cards. Transposition shuffles the order, while substitution replaces each card with a different one. Can a simple substitution be broken easily? Yes, and the weakness is telling. A fixed shift cipher falls to frequency analysis. Every language leans on certain letters far more than others, so an attacker counts which scrambled letters appear most and maps them back to the common ones. A stronger variant fights back by using multiple alphabets in a single message, driven by a keyword. This polyalphabetic approach hides the raw letter frequencies, but even it leaks a subtler pattern because the keyword eventually repeats. Think of disguising your handwriting by switching styles until someone notices the same style returns on a schedule. What makes a one-time pad theoretically unbreakable? A one-time pad uses a different random substitution for every single letter, so no pattern ever survives to be attacked. Get it exactly right and it cannot be cracked, even in theory. But the conditions are strict. The key must be truly random, kept physically secret, used only once, and at least as long as the message. Break any one of those rules and the whole guarantee collapses. Historically, a foreign code was cracked precisely because its keys were not truly random. Think of a passphrase so long, so random, and so single-use that guessing it is pointless. What is a running key cipher, and why use one? A running key cipher, also called a book cipher, solves the pad's biggest headache, distributing long keys. Instead of shipping physical pads, both sides agree on a shared text. Say a specific chapter of a well-known novel. Starting at a set point, they draw as many characters as the message needs straight from that book to serve as the key. There is nothing secret to smuggle, only an agreement about where to begin reading. It is like two people holding the same paperback and pointing at the same paragraph to unlock a note. Does a cipher work on whole chunks or one piece at a time? This is the block versus stream distinction. A block cipher gathers a fixed-sized chunk of the message and encrypts the entire chunk in one pass. A stream cipher works on a single character or bit at a time, flowing continuously. Most modern algorithms are block ciphers, though a stream cipher can be adapted to buffer data and encrypt it in block-like batches. Think of a bakery. A block cipher boxes a full dozen at once, while a stream cipher hands over one cookie as each leaves the oven. What two properties make a modern cipher strong? Strong ciphers rely on confusion and diffusion working together. Confusion means the link between the key and the ciphertext is so tangled that tweaking the input teaches an attacker nothing about the key. Diffusion means a single change in the plaintext ripples out and alters many parts of the ciphertext. A well-built algorithm layers both, using substitution to create confusion and transposition to create diffusion. Picture stirring a drop of dye into water. Diffusion spreads it everywhere, and confusion means you can never trace it back to the drop. So let's bring it together. Codes swap words, while ciphers scramble characters and bits. The two core moves are transposition, which rearranges, and substitution, which replaces. Simple substitutions fall to frequency analysis, while one-time pads are unbreakable only if every strict rule holds. Running key ciphers borrow their key from a shared book. Ciphers act on blocks or streams, and real strength comes from combining confusion and diffusion. These primitives underpin every modern algorithm ahead. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to Section 6.2, Part 1. This is the 46th session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. Now we move from classic ciphers into the modern systems you actually deploy. In this session, we'll examine how modern cryptography works we'll answer several questions. Why do modern systems trust open algorithms? Why is key length now the deciding factor? What key management habits keep you safe? How does symmetric encryption actually work? Where does symmetric encryption fall short? And what is symmetric encryption genuinely great at? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because these choices sit inside every product and service you secure. Picture a team building a file-sharing platform that must encrypt terabytes quickly. The wrong cryptographic choice makes it either slow or insecure. Understanding how modern systems balance speed, secrecy, and scale lets you guide those decisions with confidence. It also helps you spot when a design has quietly built itself on sand. Why do modern systems trust open algorithms? Because secrecy of the design turned out to be a weakness, not a strength. Early thinking said hide the algorithm, but that approach, security through obscurity, crumbles the moment the design leaks. Modern cryptography flips this. The algorithms are published for the whole world to inspect and attack. Public scrutiny finds and fixes flaws that a closed team would miss. The secret that actually matters is not the method, it is the key. Think of a bank vault whose blueprints are public, yet only the combination stays private. Why is key length now the deciding factor? Because with the algorithm public, the key carries all the weight. A longer key means a vastly larger key space, which makes brute force guessing far harder. Computing power keeps climbing, and so does the attackers. So today's safe length becomes tomorrow's weak one. An older government standard once relied on a 56-bit key that was considered plenty at the time. It is now broken routinely, and modern systems reach for at least a 128-bit key. Picture a race where your key length has to keep outrunning ever faster machines. What key management habits keep you safe? A few disciplined practices protect the one thing that matters most. Always store secret keys securely. And if you must send one across a network, shield it from prying eyes in transit. Generate keys with as much randomness as possible, spreading choices across the entire key space so patterns cannot be predicted. And when a key is no longer needed, destroy it properly rather than letting it linger. Think of a spare house key. You hide it well, you never text a photo of it, and you change the lock once it is truly retired. How does symmetric encryption actually work? It relies on a single shared secret key. Everyone in the conversation holds the same key, and that one key both locks and unlocks the message. The sender encrypts with it, and the receiver decrypts with the very same value. Because the keys are identical, this is also called secret key or private key cryptography. Sometimes the shared key exists only for one session and is then thrown away, which is called an ephemeral key. A handy memory hook is that symmetric means same key on both ends. Think of two people sharing one identical key to the same locker. Where does symmetric encryption fall short? It carries 4 real weaknesses. First, key distribution is hard, because both parties need the shared key before they can talk securely, often forcing a risky offline handoff. Second, it cannot provide non-repudiation, since either holder of the shared key could have produced any message. Third, it does not scale, because every unique pair of people needs its own separate key, and that count explodes as the group grows. Fourth, keys must be regenerated often, especially whenever someone leaves the group. Picture a shared apartment. Every time a roommate moves out, you have to rekey every lock. What is symmetric encryption genuinely great at? Raw speed. Symmetric algorithms run enormously faster than their asymmetric counterparts, often by a factor of thousands. That speed makes them the natural choice for bulk encryption, protecting huge volumes of data. They also map neatly onto hardware, which pushes performance even higher. So despite the distribution headaches, symmetric encryption is the workhorse whenever you need to protect a lot of data quickly. Think of a high-speed conveyor belt built to move large loads efficiently rather than to handle delicate one-off tasks. So let's bring it together. Modern cryptography trusts open, public algorithms, and pins all the secrecy on the key. Key length is now the deciding factor. So you use long keys and manage them with care, storing, randomizing, and destroying them properly. Symmetric encryption shares one key to both lock and unlock, which makes it blazing fast and ideal for bulk data. Its weaknesses are hard key distribution, no non-repudiation, poor scaling, and frequent rekeying. Keep these trade-offs in mind as we meet asymmetric systems next. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to Section 6.2, Part 2. This is the 47th session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. Having seen symmetric encryption, let's look at the systems that solve its biggest problems. In this session, we'll explore asymmetric encryption and hashing. We'll answer several questions. How do public and private key pairs work? Why does asymmetric encryption scale so gracefully? What extra powers does it unlock? What is its one big drawback? And how do we work around it? And what does a hashing algorithm actually give us? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because nearly every secure connection you rely on blends these techniques. Picture a customer logging into an online store over an encrypted session. Behind that little padlock icon, public keys, private keys, and hashes are all cooperating. Knowing which piece does what lets you design and troubleshoot secure communication properly. It also makes the exam questions on this topic feel obvious rather than tricky. How do public and private key pairs work? Each person holds two mathematically linked keys. One is public, freely shared with anyone, and one is private, guarded, and known only to its owner. The twist is that the pair works in opposite directions. Whatever the public key locks, only the matching private key can open, and the reverse holds too. So if you encrypt a message with someone's public key, only they can read it because only they hold the private key. Think of a mailbox with a public slot anyone can drop mail into, but only the owner holds the key to empty it. Why does asymmetric encryption scale so gracefully? Because adding a person costs almost nothing. Recall the pain point of symmetric systems, where every unique pair needs its own key, so the count explodes as the group grows. Asymmetric flips that. Each new user generates just one key pair and can then talk to everyone in the system with it. Removing someone is just as clean, since you simply revoke and cancel their keys without disturbing anyone else. Picture a company directory. One published extension per person lets the whole building reach them, no matter how many people join. What extra powers does asymmetric encryption unlock? It delivers capabilities symmetric encryption cannot. Because a private key belongs to exactly one person, it enables digital signatures. To sign, you create a compact fingerprint of your message and encrypt that fingerprint with your private key. Anyone can then use your public key to verify it truly came from you and was not altered. This single mechanism can provide confidentiality, integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation together. And two strangers can begin communicating securely with no prior shared secret at all. Think of a signature only you can produce, yet anyone can recognize on sight. What is asymmetric encryption's one big drawback? Speed. Public key operations are far slower than symmetric ones, sometimes by thousands of times. That makes asymmetric encryption a poor choice for encrypting large volumes of data directly. So in practice, we combine the two, and that combination is called hybrid cryptography. You use the slow but convenient asymmetric method just to set up the connection and exchange a shared symmetric key. Then you switch to fast symmetric encryption for the actual bulk of the conversation. Think of a slow, secure courier who hand delivers a key, after which you switch to a high-speed pipeline. What does a hashing algorithm actually give us? It produces a fixed-length fingerprint of any input, called a message digest. Feed in a file of any size, and the hash spits out a short, fixed summary that is unique to that content. Two crucial properties make it useful. You cannot run it backward to recover the original, and it is extraordinarily unlikely that two different inputs produce the same digest. When two do collide, that collision signals the algorithm is weakening and should be retired. Hashing is what powers integrity checks and, paired with signatures, non-repudiation. Think of a tamper-evident seal that changes completely if even one character is altered. So let's bring it together. Asymmetric encryption gives everyone a public and a private key that work in opposite directions. It scales gracefully since each user needs just one pair, and it unlocks digital signatures that provide integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation. Its one weakness is slow speed, which we solve with hybrid cryptography, using asymmetric to exchange a key and symmetric for the bulk. Hashing produces a one-way fingerprint that guards integrity. Together, these round out the modern cryptographic toolkit. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to Section 6.3, Part 1. This is the 48th session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. Now we get concrete with the block cipher modes and the named algorithms you must know. In this session, we'll cover how block ciphers run and the classic algorithms. We'll answer several questions. What is a block cipher mode of operation? Why is the simplest mode also the weakest? How do the chaining and streaming modes improve on it? What extra do the authenticated modes provide? And what are the older algorithms you still need to recognize? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because these modes and algorithms turn up in real configuration screens and audit findings. Picture reviewing a service that still offers an outdated cipher in its settings. Knowing which modes leak patterns and which algorithms are retired lets you flag the risk immediately. It also lets you read a cryptographic configuration and judge whether it is sound or dangerously dated. What is a block cipher mode of operation? It is the recipe for how a cipher processes data block after block. The same core algorithm can be run in different modes, and each mode changes how much protection you actually get. Some modes simply encrypt each chunk in isolation, while others weave chunks together so patterns cannot show through. Think of laying bricks. The bricks are the same, but the pattern you lay them in decides whether the wall is solid or full of obvious seams. Why is the simplest mode also the weakest? Because electronic codebook mode encrypts every identical block into the exact same output. That predictability is its downfall. An eavesdropper who sees repeated ciphertext knows the underlying plaintext repeated too, and can slowly assemble a codebook of patterns. So this mode is safe only for very short items, like encrypting a single key. Picture a printer that stamps the same word with the identical stamp every time. Anyone watching quickly learns to read your output. How do the chaining and streaming modes improve on it? They break that predictability by mixing each block with something that changes. Cipher block chaining combines each block with the previous ciphertext using exclusive OR plus a random starting value, so repeats vanish. Its streaming cousins, cipher feedback and output feedback, apply the same idea to real-time data instead of stored blocks. Counter mode goes further, using a simple incrementing counter, which lets it encrypt many blocks in parallel for speed. Think of numbering every page before you scramble them, so no two scrambled pages ever look alike. What extra do the authenticated modes provide? They add proof that the data was not tampered with, not just kept secret. The plain modes only deliver confidentiality, so they are called unauthenticated. Galois counter mode and the counter with chaining message authentication code mode go further, attaching an authentication tag to the ciphertext. That tag lets the recipient confirm both secrecy and integrity in one step. So when a design needs to guarantee that a message arrived unchanged, you reach for an authenticated mode. Think of a courier who not only seals the box but also signs a tamper-proof label, proving it was never opened. What are the older algorithms you still need to recognize? Start with the data encryption standard, an early government workhorse. It processes 64-bit blocks using a 56-bit key across 16 rounds of scrambling. That key is now far too short, so it is considered broken and insecure. But it lives on inside a stronger relative, triple DES, which runs the same core 3 times to stretch the effective strength. Triple DES itself is now discouraged and being phased out, though some products still support it. Think of an old lock design that got retired, then briefly reinforced by stacking 3 of them, before finally being replaced entirely. What other classic block ciphers should you know? A few names round out the set. The International Data Encryption algorithm also handles 64-bit blocks, but uses a stronger 128-bit key. And it once powered a popular secure email tool. Blowfish, designed by a well-known cryptographer, works on 64-bit blocks with flexible key lengths and is notably fast, which made it common for secure shell connections. Skipjack, built by a national security agency, used an 80-bit key and, unusually, supported key escrow so authorities could recover keys under legal authority. That escrow feature made the wider community distrust it. Think of 3 tools from the same era, each with its own quirk and reputation. So let's bring it together. A block cipher mode is the recipe that decides how much protection a cipher actually delivers. Electronic codebook is simplest and weakest because identical blocks map to identical output. Chaining, feedback, and counter modes mix in changing values to erase patterns, while authenticated modes like Galois counter add tamper-proof. Among older algorithms, DES is broken, triple DES is being retired, and the International Data Encryption algorithm, Blowfish, and Skipjack each carry their own signature traits. Keep these ready as we finish the algorithm lineup next. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to Section 6.3, Part 2. This is the 49th session of the CISSP Exam Prep series. Let's finish the algorithm lineup and then master how keys are managed. In this session, we'll wrap up the symmetric algorithms and key management. We'll answer several questions. What are the RIVES ciphers and where do they stand? Why is the advanced encryption standard the gold standard? How do you exchange a secret key securely? Where should keys be stored? And how does key escrow and recovery work safely? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because choosing and safeguarding keys is where cryptography usually goes wrong in practice. Picture an engineering team that picks a flawless algorithm but leaves the key sitting next to the encrypted data. The math was perfect, yet the whole system is now trivial to break. Understanding modern algorithm choices and disciplined key handling is what separates real protection from a false sense of it. What are the RIVES ciphers and where do they stand? They are a family of related algorithms with very different fates. The fourth, a stream cipher, was once everywhere, baked into old wireless and web security protocols, but a run of attacks made it insecure and it is now retired. The fifth is a block cipher with flexible sizes that stood up to a brute force cracking effort that took years to break just one message. The sixth was a block cipher offered as a candidate for the next national standard, but it lost that contest and never caught on. Think of 3 siblings from one family. One disgraced, one respected, and one that never made it big. Why is the advanced encryption standard the gold standard? Because it was chosen through open competition to replace the aging DES, and it has held up ever since. Built on an algorithm called Rindale, it became the mandated standard for protecting sensitive government data. It works on 128-bit blocks and lets you pick a key of 128, 192, or 256 bits. The longer the key, the more rounds of scrambling it performs, 10, 12, or 14. There is also the CAS family, another block cipher line that appears in some security products. Think of AES as the modern deadbolt that quietly became the default on nearly every door. How do you exchange a secret key securely? This is the classic headache of symmetric encryption, and there are 3 main answers. The first is offline distribution, physically handing over the key on paper or a device, which is simple but clumsy and easy to intercept. The second is using public key encryption to open a secure channel first, then passing the fast symmetric key through it. The third is a dedicated key exchange method, the Diffie-Hellman algorithm, which lets 2 parties agree on a shared secret, even over an open line with no prior contact. Think of 3 ways to share a house key: mailing it, slipping it through a locked delivery slot, or a clever handshake that conjures the same key on both sides. Where should encryption keys be stored? Never in the obvious place, right beside the data they protect. You have 3 broad options. Software-based storage keeps keys as files on the system, which is easy but exposed if that system is compromised. Hardware-based storage uses dedicated devices, from personal smart cards up to enterprise hardware security modules, offering stronger protection at higher cost. Cloud-based storage takes that same hardware module approach and runs it inside a provider's data center. A good practice for the most sensitive keys is to split them, giving two people separate halves so neither can act alone. Think of a safe deposit box that needs both your key and the bank's before it opens. How does key escrow and recovery work safely? Escrow means a copy of a key is held so it can be recovered later under strict conditions. Governments have floated escrow schemes to obtain keys under a court order, using approaches like splitting a key among independent third parties who must recombine their pieces. Inside a company, escrow is genuinely useful when someone leaves and their encrypted files are still needed, or when a key is simply lost. The people trusted to recover keys are recovery agents, and that is enormous power. To keep any one of them honest, organizations use M of N control, requiring at least M agents out of a group of N to cooperate before a key can be pulled. Think of a bank vault that opens only when several managers turn their keys together. So let's bring it together. The Rives ciphers show mixed fates, with the old stream cipher retired and the others fading. The advanced encryption standard, built on Rijndael, is the modern gold standard, with its 128, 192, and 256-bit keys. You exchange secret keys through offline handoff, a public key channel, or Diffie-Hellman. You store keys away from the data, using software, hardware, or cloud modules, and split the most sensitive ones. An escrow with recovery agents stays safe through M of N control. Sound key management is where cryptography truly lives or dies. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session. Welcome to section 6.4. This is the 50th session of the CISSP exam prep series. In this session, we'll look at how cryptography ages over time. We'll answer several questions. Why does every crypto system have a limited lifespan? How do you govern cryptography across an organization? And how long does your protection actually need to last? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because the algorithm that is safe today may quietly become a liability tomorrow. Picture a company that encrypted its archives years ago and never revisited the choice. What was strong then may be crackable now, exposing data everyone assumed was locked away. As the professional guiding these decisions, you are the one who keeps that protection from silently expiring. Why does every crypto system have a limited lifespan? Because computing power keeps rising, and rising power erodes cryptographic strength. A long-observed trend holds that processing capability roughly doubles every couple of years. As machines get faster, keys that once took lifetimes to guess eventually fall within reach of brute force. So no algorithm stays strong forever, with the lone theoretical exception of a properly used one-time pad. Think of a dam holding back a river that keeps rising. Sooner or later, a wall built for yesterday's water is overtopped. How do you govern cryptography across an organization? You put clear controls in writing so choices are deliberate, not accidental. First, specify exactly which algorithms are approved for use, so teams cannot quietly adopt something weak. Second, define acceptable key lengths tied to how sensitive the data is, using longer keys for higher stakes. Third, list the secure transaction protocols that are allowed for communication. Together, these controls keep every cryptographic decision consistent and defensible. Think of a building code that dictates approved materials, minimum thicknesses, and certified methods, so nothing critical is left to guesswork. How long does your protection actually need to last? Exactly as long as the data stays valuable, and no longer. If you are protecting a plan that executes next week, you need not fear a machine that might crack it a decade from now. But if the information must stay secret for many years, you have to choose strength that will outrun that entire window of advancing technology. Matching the protection to the data's shelf life is the heart of good cryptographic planning. Think of choosing a safe. A day's cache needs far less than documents you must guard for a lifetime. So let's bring it together. Every crypto system has a limited lifespan, because ever-growing computing power slowly renders yesterday's strength obsolete. You manage this through governance, specifying approved algorithms, acceptable key lengths, and allowed protocols. and you always match the strength of your protection to how long the data must stay secret. Treat cryptography as something that ages, plan for its renewal, and your defenses stay ahead of the curve. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.